Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hey You, Get a Real Fucking Job. I am Reggie B. I am your host, and we got a great show lined up for you today. With us today is Alyssa Marshall. She is the owner of Owwlish, and she's coming to us live from Arizona. Now, just so you know, Owwlish is a platform that offers course creators a new way of building and teaching online course communities right from their website. They have currently helped thousands of customers build online course and membership websites, and I'm pretty sure she'd be willing to help you. So let's get on with the show. It should be a good one. Alyssa, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for the wonderful intro, Reggie, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, listen, we're happy to have you. We're jealous you're in Arizona, but you told me you are kind of in the snow. So for those of us in the snow, we want nothing but to get out of the snow. But honestly, you know what? I didn't even realize that there was parts of Arizona that got snow. So that's kind of cool, really. But
A
listen,
lot of Arizona, surprisingly. Yeah,
really,
pine trees all over where I am.
that's
Mhm.
crazy. Um, but listen, I'm a little confused. You had a real fucking job, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's one of those top ones. It's one of those ones when we're kids in school. Doctor, lawyer, dentist, street performer. Although I don't know if that's actually on the list, but you had one of those real jobs that people are taught. Listen, you know what? If you want to be successful, this is the route. This is where you're gonna go. So let's talk on that a little bit. Before we get talking about what you're doing now, let's back up. Let's talk about your aspirations to become a dentist and what changed. What got you kind of away from that and doing your own thing.
Definitely. I grew up under a single mom and in Korea. So in Korea, being a single mother is no big deal. And it is a big deal. Did I say
Right.
no big deal? I mean, it is a giant deal. The perception, it is still pretty conservative in that matter. And she figured out how to feed us three and, get us through school and all of this. And it was really tough for her. She always had a business. But I have to say, when I was watching her, I never envied the businesses that she had because she always had these businesses where she was working in the business. And she went through a series of those businesses throughout my childhood growing up and throughout my, anyway, and through high school, let's just say.
Right.
And I was watching her and thinking, I am not going to live like that. I am not doing that. And I wanted to have a secure profession, a profession that is looked up to and that would give me a pretty good socioeconomic status and that I didn't have to worry about my livelihood, that I would just kind of be set. And I wasn't sure what that was going to be. It never was like being a dentist is my dream job. That was never me. It was more like I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to be a professional. This was my young, teenage thoughts that I was having. And in Korea, you have to take this Korean version of the SAT, if you will.
Okay.
That test is only given once a year. That once a year is like gonna dictate the rest of your life, just to put it lightly.
Right.
And it's so funny because that day, like the entire nation, the weather's always freezing cold, even if the day before it was pretty good. It's like because everybody is in such an tense place. I don't know if this makes sense, but like weather is always god awful, and like nobody has to go to work. It's just like kind of becomes like a holiday,
Oh
like a day
wow.
off.
Huh.
Yeah, just to make sure everybody taking the test can get to their testing site on time, and it's just like a day off. The entire nation is off, and these third year high school senior students are taking this test all together, right? And it really, I mean, like you can have these all those dreams you want to, but a lot of people would decide where they're going to apply to after they get the test results, and
Right.
that was me. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, med school, in Korea, like the acupuncture school is really up there as well in terms of the competitiveness. So med school, acupuncture, Chinese medicine school, and dentistry. And if I don't make either of those three, maybe I'll go to pharmacy school. That was like what was in my head.
Right.
And so, yeah, when I got the test results back, it was it was good enough for me to go into a good dental school in Korea. And so I applied and I got in. And I have to say, I've barely even been to the dentist before I started dental school myself.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So how long did the dental school take you? What's the timeline in
Six
Korea?
years. So here it's a grad school, right? You go for undergrad first and then you go to grad school. There, you go straight out of high school, but it's a 6 year program
Oh
instead. So
wow.
it is longer. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you made a point there, and I think it's something that a lot of self-employed business people hit the wall, where you said, mom was always working in her business, not on her business, and that can be a huge transition. And you probably found that as well when you went to transition out of dentistry. So take me through, did you work for somebody as a dentist? Did you have your own practice? What happened after you left school?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, before any of this happened, I first relocated to the US. And when a dentist trained outside of the US comes to the US, you actually have to go back to school,
Right,
but for 2 years. So you have to repeat the later part of dental school. And the program is not like, not every dental school has this program for internationally trained dentists, but some do, and it is extremely competitive to get in. There are a lot of dentists coming in from all over the world, and they land in the US for one reason or another, right? Some people, it is what they wanted to do. They wanted
right,
to relocate, and it's their, let's say, free will, if you put it that way. For some people, it is like a family situation or a marriage that just brings them to the US, and a surprising number of people do that. Um, Especially from like Southeast Asia, like women will marry an engineer husband that is in the US, and she's a dentist, and now she's moving to the US, and now she has to go back to school to get her license validated, all this stuff. But that process of getting in is extremely competitive. So
right.
it took me 2 cycles. I did get in. I earned my degree from UCLA, and then while I was in school, I got exposed to entrepreneurship. It was a 4 hour work week, like that book that changes everybody's
Right.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that. That's what changed mine as well. And I just, before I listened to that book, I was listening to the audio version of it. And before I listened to that book, I never questioned that I would be anything but a dentist.
Right.
I didn't even cross my mind that I could look outside of this field that I had entered. It was just not part of my psyche. It's like I did a dental school, I'm gonna go dentist, and it was not a question of I love it. It was just, yeah, this is my life. And then I was so blessed to have the book, The 4 Hour Work Week, handed to me in audio version. And I was listening while I was in my senior year, like finishing up my lab requirements to try to, graduate on time,
Right.
basically. I'm like in lab late doing my work, and I'm listening to this book, and my world just turned upside down. This is a very just, I can't even say this is an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration. It's like all the things that I didn't know that I didn't know, the world that was there, but I didn't even know that it was a thing. It just like cracked open to me. I was like, oh my God, holy shit. Like I like this. I like this.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to think about, well, maybe I don't have to be a dentist. And then that's when I started really thinking, like, I never really had the goal to be a dentist anyway. And all this kind of, these things come to mind. And so, um, I, when I was graduating, like, well, I knew that I was going to finish school, and it's not like I had a business yet. So I was going to start working, but I knew going in that this was going to be temporary. Like, I had other aspirations
Right.
now. And so, yes, when I finished school, um, my then fiance, now husband, and we actually picked up and just went and explored Europe for a couple of months. And there we tinkered on various business ideas. Nothing really took off from that that
Yeah.
time, by the
Yeah.
way. But you just we didn't really know what we were doing, and we were throwing a bunch of spaghettis on the wall, and we tried a bunch of ideas, and nothing worked. But it was our quote unquote honeymoon slash whatever exploratory duration, and I had this little like hope, like maybe if something works during the time I'm here, I won't have to go back and actually, have to serve my time as a dentist. But
Right.
it did not work, and so I did start working as a dentist. And but I did that for just 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, we had a business, and it wasn't like it was bringing us so much money yet, but it was more like it was gonna be okay for a while. And if I needed to, I could always go back to, that's the worst case scenario. Like I just go back to working as a dentist again until we can get back on our feet again. It wasn't it depends on how you look at it, but it was just like, you know what, let's look at this like it's okay, it's gonna be okay. So I worked for 6 months, and at the end of 6 months we had these plans and signups to run a live workshop for other internationally trained dentists to be able to pass these like tests
Right.
that they had
Okay.
to go through,
Yeah.
and because it's really hard going through that process. And so yeah, that became our business. And fortunately I had not had to go back since. That
Wow.
was 2013. Yeah.
And it's amazing, so it took you like 8 years of school,
Yeah.
and with reading one book that changed your perception, or listening to one book, whatever, however you look at it, but
Mhm.
it just changed your perception on what you were going to do with your life. That's amazing how quickly, or how something can just come out of nowhere and open your eyes and your mind, and it's like, holy shit, like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. So now I know with that first business, like you said, it was teaching other international students, what they needed to do. You did fairly well with that business, did you not? Like, do I remember you hit six figures within the first year? That
Yeah,
that's
yeah, we
that's pretty
did.
great.
It was. And actually that business is still going. We just
Oh,
don't do
okay.
anything live anymore.
Right.
Everything is virtual, and it's been virtual since 2014, 13, 14, 14. We did 2 years of live, a few live workshops, probably like less than 10 in
Right.
total. Um, but yeah, we transitioned everything online, and built a course teaching the exact same thing, but doing it online. And that was an interesting one because I was teaching how to cut teeth. Basically, it's how to cut plastic teeth.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's actual dentistry skills, right? But it's just not something that anybody thinks to teach or learn online. At least it wasn't back then. This is
Right.
10 years ago. And everybody does dental school in person, and it's just like, but my husband really was the one that pushed me. He was like, you know what? These live workshops are great. They're extremely lucrative, but they're very seasonal, and you can only teach so many people at a time. There has to be a way to do this online.
Right.
And I was like, no, Kevin, there isn't. You don't understand. You're not a dentist, so you do not
Right.
understand. There is no way to do this online. And he was like, no, really think about it. And then, like a thought marinates in you, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, well, maybe there is. Like this, like suspicion starts to bubble up sometimes.
It's kind of on the back burner there, and it's just, simmering, so to speak. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's exactly what was going on. And I had to sit with that for a while, just kind of entertain it and be like, oh, no, 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 that's not gonna work. And entertain it and be like, no, no, no. Um, but yeah, we figured out, I was just like, okay, well, quite frankly, what really needs to be live? Like, I could teach this all online. It's just a matter of how I explain it and how it is filmed. And
Right.
actually, it could be more effective live online because when you see somebody else practice, it's from a distance versus if you film up close, you actually can capture more details. And so we ended up figuring out how to film this, and we filmed everything from two angles at once, and it was so big that like just a couple of teeth filled up the whole screen. That's how large we filmed everything.
Right.
And we created a course, but before we created the course, um, we actually, because by then we had a little list of people that were signed up for our email list, and We sent out an email. It was like, because I was like, okay, I think we can figure this out. I think we got the methodology. Now, I'm not going to build it just yet, though, because I don't know if, this is really a new thing. And so if nobody's going to buy it, I ain't
Right.
building it because it's a big
Is
deal.
there a need for it, right? That old, if you build it, they will come. Well, that's not
Oh,
that
don't do
that's good
that.
for a movie, but not in reality, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we sent out an email with a sales page and said, hey, I am working on this. If you would join this course now, you'll get it for half off. It is not done. And starting this date, and I think that date was like 2 weeks out. Starting this date, you'll get one module for 10 days. It was 2 weeks, Monday through Friday. You're going to get a new part of the course released for you. And if you're interested, buy here. So we set that up, and we were in Austin, Texas. That's where we were living at the time. And we went out for dinner. And while we were at dinner, I don't remember how many signups we said that we would need to go ahead with the course anymore, but I do remember we hit that number at dinner.
Oh wow.
And it was like, oh shit,
Oh shit.
okay.
Now we got to scramble to actually put it together. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. We are on now. We have to go and figure this out. And
That's
it
awesome.
was a hectic, few weeks for sure. 2 weeks prior, and then the release, and then, the release was going on for 2 weeks. So the whole month was extremely chaotic and barely slept, my husband and I, just to get everything going and being released on time. But that was that was when we cracked it, if you will,
Right.
and we were good. And that course, I mean, I am so grateful for it. I have not had to see a patient. I have not had to teach anybody live since, and yeah, it's been
That's awesome. And sometimes, you know what, that's the best way. Your feet are kind of held to the fire, and it's either,
wonderful.
sink or swim.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is to be sinking. So that's great. Now, did everything go as smoothly as you'd hoped? Like, was there some failures in between, you know, getting this platform going? Excuse me. And, the first one you had started?
Are you talking about the platform Owlish or like in the dental business itself?
Well, excuse me.
There are lots
Um,
of failures. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking, which
Well,
one do I
and
share?
yeah, and that's where I'm trying to get at is because let's face it, everything wasn't successful. So this
Oh
last
no.
platform you were talking about, is that Owlish now the
Mhm.
when you launched the course. So was there some failures leading up to the success of Owlish?
I'll, oh, so the dental business, okay, so let me just first talk about the dental business and then the entire journey. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years now, so if I didn't have my share of failures, something would be weird,
Right.
right? In the dental business, yeah, we have independent contractors that work with our clients to help them with their essays and their interviewing skills and things like that. Once our independent contractor just quit overnight, took all of our contacts,
Oh
and
no.
left us completely hanging dry. Things like that happened. A faculty of mine from UCLA became a direct competitor of mine. And when that happened, I mean, it was not only devastating, but it was like a faculty that I looked up to so much.
Right. Yeah.
I had any claim on the territory, but we were like the first to run a business in the way that we do, where we do online and we help throughout the process of, essay preparation and all this like bench test, which is tooth cutting and interview, like having a very comprehensive uh, service that we were certain the first. And when my faculty joined, we certainly saw a huge dip in revenue numbers
Right.
immediately. And I was pregnant. And we were like, okay, I do not know if this dip is going to continue going down and go to the ground, or we can actually like bring it back up to do anything. Like, we just don't know. And oh, yeah, that those few months during, and it was very unfortunate that the timing was during pregnancy, but it was awful, really, really stressful. It
Oh
did end up
yeah.
becoming a catalyst for our software business, though. So I am, in hindsight, grateful. And then I mean in the middle, we've had like these other businesses or ventures that we started and it didn't work out the way we wanted it to. I don't know how deep you want me to go into things, but like, oh, for sure, we've had our share of um, trials and errors, if you will, lots of stumblings and just falling flat on our face
Right.
and crying a little,
Well,
taking our time
but
before
but
we can bounce up again.
yeah, and that's part of the journey that a lot of people don't realize is, chances are you're going to fail, and it's, how resilient are you to bounce back and learn from it. And, that would be devastating, having somebody you looked up to, basically become a competitor. It's like, you want to reach over and smack them, or right, or more so, but maybe pull a couple of teeth and forget the freezing. um but yeah, that would be tough. So okay, so let's talk about Owwlish. Let's
Sure.
talk about that platform, what you do, and how you're helping people with that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Owlish was born because as I was creating courses in the dental business mainly, I am not tech savvy. I'm not somebody that enjoys like figuring out how the tech works. I'm somebody that's like, uh-oh, this isn't working. Or, like my car maintenance needed light has been on for too long. This kind
Right.
of person.
It'll go out, I'll just leave it.
Yeah, or it's driving okay, I
Yeah.
guess. And but every time I wanted to change, but because I was not that type of person that tried to figure out how this tech was working, and I found it just very overwhelming. I wanted something changed in the course, which was very often. I would either have to really gather myself and be like, okay, I can do this. I can log into our back end and try to figure it out. Or I'd be like, hey, developer, whoever I'm working with at the time, like, I need help. But it just felt like it was a lot. Like, I like to be independent,
Right.
but that the tech side, that's just not how my brain works. And so that was really hard for me. But then to be able to not understand my own back end of my business and my course and not being able to make even the littlest changes easily by myself and having to felt like I had to rely on somebody, I didn't like that feeling.
Right. No, and that's a tough thing for, entrepreneurs are very proud people,
Yeah.
and we hate to admit, what we don't know. And like you say, asking for help and feeling like, okay, you know what, I should know this and I don't. So, am I really, and I just actually interviewed somebody about imposter syndrome, and that starts to sink in there where it's like, okay, you know what, I don't really know what I'm doing, so why would I believe that anybody, should believe in me, sort of thing.
That imposter syndrome is very real.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I've certainly, and I can't say that I don't have it anymore either. Like I think, but I also think that like partly it can fuel us as well. If you use that energy right. But anyway,
Right.
so yeah, we were doing these things and as you have online courses for years, your website has to go through iterations, like the design changes, the tech changes. You have to kind of build everything from scratch once every few years. And
Right.
every time you do that, what a disaster from porting this course over because the course was big and we have lots of courses now. And so we add more courses and it's just a big project, huge. And yeah, I just didn't like how the back end looked. It was just a big old mess. Nothing seemed right. And so I was talking to my husband about this and we toyed around with this for a while. Like, I don't like this. Like, there should be a better way to do this. Like, why is this so hard? Why is the course so messy? Why is the back end looking like this? What can we do? Like, what is up? And then finally we were like, you know what? Let's build something. This is ridiculous. Like, we're going through this, other people are going through this, and fortunately he can code.
Okay.
Um, but that was another thing that I didn't want to always have to ask my husband for help.
Yeah.
I did not like that. Because I will get onto his bottom of his to-do list, and then
Right.
I'll be
Yeah.
like, "Is it done?" He's like, "No," because he's really busy too. And it's like my to-do list is not his priority,
It's
obviously.
kind of like the
And
kid in the back seat. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Right? Is it done yet?
exactly
Yeah.
asking, like, why not? Why is it not done yet? Okay, that was going on for way too long, years and years and years. And so, yeah, we were like, okay, we I think we can build something better that is easier to use. The course is organized. The courses before were on WordPress, and we're using WordPress plugins for the course, and we're using a bunch of WordPress plugins to make everything work. And whenever I touch something, I'd feel like I'd break something, like all these moving parts, and the back end was a disaster. And what we built is a just a clean, it's just for courses and memberships. We don't do other things. So we're not trying to be like a full service web provider. Like we
Right.
don't build websites. That's not it. But if you have a website and you want to put up a course on your website, but you do not want to have a new subdomain and manage two separate sites, then that's where we would come in. And that's how I envisioned how we, not I say I, but we envisioned this whole thing to work. It needed to be extremely simple to use, it needed to be beautiful, and it needed to just be like a plug and play kind of thing where they would come in and build a course on our platform, but then drop a code onto their footer and done.
Okay. Right.
Like that's it. Like it's in, it looks good. You can of course change the colors and upload your logo and like tweak things as much or as little as you want to, but even if you didn't want to tweak anything, it still it looks good, like something like that. And so yeah, it really was a product that we created to help people like me, I have to say. And it was, like it ticked off the boxes for me. Like that was very important for me when we were building it, that it's for the non-techie, and it's for the person that doesn't want like a separate website just for courses, and you just want a course on your site. Like, why is this so hard? Like that's who the Owwlish is for.
Right. And you mentioned something there that is, is very true is a lot of entrepreneurial ideas come out of trying to solve a problem for ourselves. It's like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated. Why is this not available, or why can't I figure this out? And you know what? We end up figuring it out ourselves because we're getting tired of waiting on somebody else to do it. So that's awesome. Now, I do know that, times have kind of changed, and you did it as well when you said, listen, we got to get away from this live training because you can only do so much. So you're really starting to see the onset of online courses and things like that. So I know it can be tough to decide, like is this course really gonna make it? How does somebody? What's the my or thought process? Maybe somebody can go through when they're trying to validate an online idea before they even start. Like, can they? Is there ideas you give to help somebody decide, yeah, that could be a good idea for an online course?
Yes, that is a wonderful question, and it has a long answer
That's okay.
to it. I am going to say that I, if you are toying with the idea of doing an online course, it is a huge, there's a huge opportunity there, absolutely no doubt at all. But hopefully you have somewhat of an audience to tap into. Hopefully you're not daydreaming of an idea to make a course for an imaginary audience that you do not yet have,
Right.
because it's hard to understand, even unless you're doing something so very extremely specific like I was back then, where my audience is as specific as it can get, right? It has to be a dentist. That person had to already been trained abroad,
Right.
had to have the dream of coming and practicing in the US. You can live here or not, but that is their goal, and they had to have the need to pass this specific test, right? Unless it's something so specific like that, in which case I think there are ways you can just do research online to see if there's a demand for that thing that you're thinking about. But for most other people, the idea you have, maybe it's your take on like how to become a better bodybuilder, or your something with your spin on it, right? Your take on how to coach for your clients, whatever that thing is. If you do not have an audience of your own that is already listening to you talk about this topic, it's gonna be very, very hard. Not
Right.
saying that you can't make sales, But it's like, do you want to make like 3 sales or do you want to make 3,000 sales? And if you want to make 3,000 sales, you have to do the validation part well. And you can only go so far with the validation process, in my opinion, if you don't have your own audience that's already giving you signs that this is what they want to hear from you. So ideally, when you're validating a course idea, you would tap into your own audience first and also look through content that you published, Facebook, YouTube, blog, wherever it is, content that you published that got a lot of engagement and attention from your audience, and be like,
Right.
okay, this is what they want to hear from me. You have to follow those breadcrumbs. You can imagine it and hope they will follow you, but really it's you have to kind of dance with your audience, you know? They show you like, oh, okay, two potential paths, you choose, I like this one better than that, or maybe they show you something, but you're like, oh, that is absolutely does not fill me, like I'm not going to go there. But it's like you always have to have this kind of dance with your audience. And if you do not have that audience to dance with, start building that first,
Okay.
is what I'm going to say. So whatever platform you decide to do, you do not have to be everywhere. I do not think you can just see where you like to spend your time. Like as a person and online. If you are on Reddit, maybe you use Reddit. If you like being on Twitter, you can use Twitter. Don't try to be everywhere, but just try to master one platform first and just use the platform uh you are already decent at, meaning like you enjoy using, because if you don't like it, you're probably going to fall off the wagon one
R-
way or, sooner than later anyway.
Right.
It's
So
that
so
and
you'd
give
maybe
away free
say, you know what,
content.
start with a little bit of live stuff, see if you get,
Yeah.
excuse me, some feedback on it, and look at developing your course after that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Content go live, write long form posts, just share things and see like, okay, are people even listening to me? Because if people are not listening to you when you're sharing free content like that, they're not going to buy that either.
Right. And I think, like you said, you know what? Find the platform that works for you. Find the platform where your people are, and master that. That's so important because they all have their own little nuances. They all have their own little algorithms, and yeah, that itself is a job to figure out. How can I get seen and stuff like that. So now
Absolutely.
I know you're a big believer in creating your own online community.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about that and why that's important?
Okay. Facebook is not your friend. Let's just start there.
You mean
Um,
that Christmas card I got from Zuckerberg that wasn't real? Is that what you're saying?
well, see, and if you've been in business long enough, you've seen changes in Facebook and you've probably been burnt by them more than once,
Right.
right? Like they can, and this is same with any platform, Instagram, Twitter, none of these platforms are tools for you to utilize, and please utilize them. They're wonderful, but you cannot rely on them to build, you can't build a business or you can't build a house on somebody else's land and be like, okay, this is my business. Like that business can be taken away from you any moment. So
Right.
the only way you're going to actually build something that is truly yours is if you own it. So I'm big into having your online community like off of Facebook, like Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups. And if that's where your audience is, it is something that you have to kind of figure out, right? Because like if you're just starting out and you want to build an online community, maybe you have to leverage those platforms first until the community takes on its own kind of life. It's hard to do it from the start if there's nobody, it's just
Right.
crickets. Like
Yeah, you
people
need to
don't
go
like
out
to
and
enter a
and find
restaurant.
them and bring them to your place.
Right,
Right.
exactly. But at a certain point, after your community has a life of its own, or after your audience has a size of its own, and you can kind of, stand your own ground, then I do think it is extremely important to bring them in under your roof and get out of their roof. And so, whatever that looks like for you, whether it is a bunch of forums or whether it is just a really active usually it looks like a hybrid of like courses and forums, right? For somebody, but have that housed with you instead of having a course site and then a separate, Facebook community
Right.
or whatever, because you just don't know what's gonna happen. It's so easy to just become like a complacent with this, but it isn't. And also, under the same breath, the email addresses, if you're like on Instagram and posting and you get a bunch of interaction, try to find out how you can get those people to give you their email address
Right.
so that you can actually, because you do not own the your audience if it's built off of social media. The only way you can build a better relationship and a stronger one and not get deterred when, and not that email deliverability cannot come into question as well. That also does, but it's still email, it's still coming to somebody's like inbox versus them changing the algorithm completely and you being not being seen. And I have friends that are just like, yeah, I got kicked off of Twitter for I just, it's just like slap on the wrist, but it's like if your business is built off of your
Yeah.
Twitter audience, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And that just shows like what is possible. They can just completely shut you off and say no more if they want it. Hopefully that wouldn't happen. So yeah, whenever you can, try to own your audience. Um and if I may, like I think a really good way to entice that audience that you're interacting with on other platforms to actually like hand over their email address so that you can communicate with them directly is by creating a little freebie online course. Like create a little course, a mini course. It shouldn't take more than a few hours for that person to even go through it. Not even, doesn't even have to be a few hours, but the promise, the outcome has to be extremely specific.
Right. And I
Like
like,
I'm gonna how to
sorry, I like how you said about, you can't build your house on somebody else's land. And a perfect example of that is where you're talking about not owning your audience is Amazon. Amazon's huge. Amazon's, everybody loves selling on Amazon and buying off Amazon. But when you're a seller, like you said, you have absolutely no input from the client. You don't know any of their contact information. And it's been seen time and time again where Amazon will just make their own product and kick you right off of. So here you are, spending thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on product, and the next day Amazon says, "Well, you know what? We're going to sell it bigger, better, and faster. And thanks for coming out. Thanks for the idea, sort of thing." So, um, and
exactly.
and let's face it, you know what? Having those email addresses and having that kind of connectivity, it's all about marketing, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be able to reach out to your own audience so you can market to them. And I was going to bring that up next. um, what do you find some of the best ways of you found that audience, they're kind of interested in what you're talking about. How am I marketing that online course among what could probably be, you know a full ocean, and I'm just a small fish, right? I can think of, the fitness world. The fitness world is full of online courses and things like that. So how do you differentiate? How do you market an online course?
Differentiating. So first of all, you have to start from your own audience, right? So you're gonna build a course that would resonate for people like your audience. Whoever your audience is, however big it is, whatever they look like, there are more of them out there. So if you have some money to spend, let's just say, I really like using Facebook lookalike audiences, for instance, to reach those people.
That's sorry. What
So,
what can you explain that? What is a Facebook lookalike audience? That's the first time I've heard that
yeah.
term.
Oh, yes. Okay. So let's say you have a list of people a list of people. This is your email list. This is your audience. If you upload that onto Facebook and try to run an ad to it, but instead of just saying run an ad to this people, you can create another audience called a lookalike audience because Facebook knows you. And so Facebook will be like, oh, okay, so you're looking for more people that look like this. No problem. And so it is very smart. And so, yeah, Facebook will find exactly the people like the people that you've given them. And so, if your list is big enough and you have a big list of buyers, for instance, then instead of uploading your entire list of email list, for instance, you would upload the list of your buyers and then ask Facebook to create a lookalike audience, and they will do that. It's a click. Like you don't have to do
Right.
anything,
Right.
but Facebook will do the heavy lifting for you. And then you'll create an ad to show it's so extremely highly targeted. Like it's people just like who you bought from.
Right.
But usually, when entrepreneurs start out, they don't have a big buying list, and you can't make a lookalike audience with 5 people. And
Right.
so you would you would upload your email list, and you would also hopefully have some kind of tracking system happening on your website where you can create retargeting ads, for instance. Because if you bring your own audience like that to Facebook, it is so much cheaper to run ads than if you were asking Facebook to find, let's say, females that just had a baby to market your belly course to, whatever,
Right.
your
Right.
it's so much cheaper. If Facebook has to do that for you, you're paying way, way, way more. Versus if you're asking Facebook to show this ad to people that already know you, or it's more like that, it drops, the price per click drops significantly a lot. So and that ad doesn't have to be expensive, but and the way to broaden the top of funnel, which is like people getting to recognize you, social is wonderful for that. So stay on social, and but it's like it's a
A
funnel,
funnel.
right? And while I don't really love talking, like, I mean, I love sales funnels, but at the same time, they can be a turn off as well. So like I don't like it when I feel like I'm in a funnel. Like, and if I can tangibly feel that from the way they're marketing to me, it's such a turn off.
Right.
Um but everybody has a funnel. The whole thing is a funnel, but you hopefully will, craft yours in a way where it's just not too blatantly in your face. But what you're trying to do is get recognized and just do this on social. And then from there, be like, okay, you're enticing them to now come to your site to give them your email address with a really nice freebie of some kind. It has to be worth that exchange, right?
Right.
And so they will give it to you. And that freebie has to be so good. You can't just throw something random up, because even if you got an email like that with a poor quality freebie, that person is disappointed by the freebie and will not like you, like you kind of put them down. You have to like you have to do a lot of good deeds first before you can really ask for a sale back.
Right.
They have to be like, "Oh yeah, Alyssa been talking about this for a while now. Oh, she has a new course? Oh yeah, like I know that she knows what she's talking about, because there are lots of other people that talk about, let's say, online courses out there. But I know by now Alyssa knows what she's talking about in this topic. She has a course in that topic. I want to learn that topic. Okay, let me pull the trigger." It kind of needs to be like that. But anyway, find people through social, bring them back to you, and then nurture them. Have parties
Right.
in your
Yeah.
house, not at restaurants, like in your house.
Right.
Bring them in.
Yeah. Right. And like you say, you know what? When you give away value,
Yeah,
people look at, look at what they've given me for free. What am I going to get when I actually start paying for it? Right.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
what are some of the biggest mistakes you see online course creators making? Is there some, faux pas that you think, hey, you know what? Stay away from that. It's not going to serve you well in the end.
For sure. Usually, making too big of a course in the beginning of their online course career. For instance, if you are trying to create your very, very first course, don't make it about full body workout. Make it about abs, make it about biceps,
Right.
make it about something small. Um, but don't make it about, because it's so many different reasons that come into this. One, it is so much easier to make. Like, and that I told you that my month of creating that course was hell. If I changed anything in that month of creating that my very first online course, if I knew then what I know now, I would have made a smaller version. I would have said, I'm teaching you how to do this prep. Do you want it? Instead of making an entire course, because I had to redo everything. It was, I mean, it was unnecessary stress. I didn't have to do it that way. And I think the final outcome would have been better if I made one little course,
Right.
sold it,
And expanded on it.
expanded on it exactly. So, It's not only that. Well, if you do it the way I did, and you already pre-sold it, then you have a fire under your ass, so you have to do it. But if it's more like you are, working towards this course on your own and you haven't sold it yet, the probability of you becoming burnt out or just kind of giving up in the middle of making the course and not finishing that course is very high if you try to create a course that is just too much. I know as entrepreneurs in your mind, like you have all these like things and you want to make this beautiful course that will take people from A to Z. I know, I get that. I totally get that. That's what I did too. But just first prove to yourself that you can take people from A to B first. Just
Right.
make it small. And later maybe that just becomes a lesson in the bigger course, you know? But going from A to B and then selling it or giving it away and then getting feedback from them and being like, "Oh, okay." Like you learn so much by that interaction. And so you're going to create your A to Z course a lot more efficiently and be more effective in that course and teaching people actually through that journey if you've done a lot of little courses first. So I'm going to say like having their ambition way too big. And honestly, in some sense, it's also a way of procrastination. Like instead of just being like, yeah, I'll just make like a little course over the weekend and get it out there because like getting it out there and trying to sell is kind of scary.
Right.
Except for that, like, oh no, my full body workout course isn't perfect yet. I can't. So it becomes a way of procrastination and you'll sit on that thing for a very long time. So don't do that. It has to be very, very action oriented. Give yourself small wins and your audience small wins. You'll earn their trust and you'll learn more about your audience and how they learn. And you will make your next course a little better and the next course a little better. And then before you know it, you'll be ready to create your big flagships, the one that you're dreaming about, and it'll be amazing.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's kind of like, one step at a time, and no different than you go out to a fancy restaurant. They don't put all the food on the table at once. You get one piece at a time, and it's like, "Oh, that was so good. I can't wait for the next one." And,
Right.
"Oh, the main course is coming," right? So yeah, that's an amazing way to look at it. Okay, so listen, I want to find out, a little bit about you. We've talked about Alish. Where'd the name Alish come from? What's the significance of that?
Oh, that was more of a just a long list of possible names kind of
Oh, okay.
situation. Yeah. Because like, oh my gosh, finding a URL and finding a name is
Right.
hard.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It was like, okay, what are all the possible names? I'm not exactly sure how we landed on Owlish anymore, but we had a
Right.
list, and then it started from Owlish, and of course it was the actual .com URL was not there.
Right.
But when we added another W, we could get the .com, and we're like, okay, let's do this. This sounds good. I like it.
Right. Now, speaking on that, do you recommend, because this is something I've done with different businesses, when you're first starting out and you're coming up with a name, did you search the different platforms that you planned on being at to see, okay, you know what, is that available? That URL is available? Is there anybody else using that name? And if they were, you decide, okay, well, now I need to change.
Oh, you mean like Instagram handles and things like this?
Right. Yeah. Did you do any of that at all, or
We didn't go that far. We
no?
just figured out the URL. And
Right.
yeah, I actually wish we did it, but honestly, like because it's not available everywhere.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't know. And maybe you can find a good name if you stick at it long enough.
Yeah. Right.
Man, naming's
It
hard.
is. And we get something because, the name kind of defines who
Yeah.
we are, what we're trying to do. And when you can't get that name, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of like,
Yeah. It's
getting
all.
getting a knife in the chest. It's like, well, no, that's my name. Like,
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
I
Well,
got
it's
to pay
mine.
this
What do you
person off. Give me that URL. But okay, so
mean?
like I say, let's talk a little bit about you. What did you want to be when you're growing up? When we're going through school and they're saying, you know what, doctor, dentist, lawyer, those are the top ones. You didn't want to be a dentist. Did you have a dream as a kid what you wanted to be?
I have to say that I don't have one that I had because it was my heart's desire. And I kind of feel sad about that. I spent a lot of my childhood in Korea, and Korea education system, if you know anything about it, it's called a pressure cooker. Because kids are told to study, 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 study
Right.
all day, every day from a really, really young age. And they're kind of told what you're supposed to want to become from a very young age.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I will say there are people that absolutely somehow leave themselves with room to dream. I was not one of those kids. I was a kid that just wasn't, I didn't really have my own wings, I feel like, until I have become an entrepreneur myself.
Wow. Huh, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
I mean, we know that perception is out there about, students from Asian backgrounds being very smart, and you don't realize that it's because of that, they're kind of told, well, this is what you need to do.
Yes.
Study, study, study. Don't waste your time dreaming. We're going
Don't
to.
bring home bees. What happened
Yeah.
here?
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. That's something. Most entrepreneurs that I know of are very routine. Are you a routine type of person, or do you kind of just
I
fly by the seat of your
am.
pants?
I mean, I'm a very routine person. I had to become a little more flexible after I had kids because kids are,
Kids are anything but routine.
yeah, got two new bosses. And
Yeah.
once anytime I think I figured some kind of routine out, they are like, no, mom, I'm
Right.
something changed again. And so, yes, I love my routines, and I'm still kind of trying to defend my mornings the best I can, get up early, at least get a couple hours in by myself. But
Right.
I also have to be flexible that my kiddo might wake up at 5 and
Yeah.
join me.
Mom's plans can be put on hold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you deal with, every entrepreneur goes through moments of self-doubt,
Mm.
and whether it's self-doubt from yourself or self or doubt from others. Did you face any of that when you were building this company, and how did you deal with that?
Let's first talk about self-doubt from others. I am very careful who I share things with. Um, and I'm gonna say especially family.
Right.
Not my husband because we're in this together,
Right.
but other, parents, siblings, mom and siblings for me. I actually don't share a lot about what I'm doing or anything.
Right.
Only because I've tried it at times, but nobody is on a similar path, or nor nobody understands what I'm doing or why I'm living like this and leaving my lucrative career behind,
Right.
right? Like it still comes out. My mom's still sad that I'm not practicing, still sad.
Right.
And so I just don't share with my family, and it's better that way. For a while, I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted them to be like, "Oh, you became an entrepreneur and you're doing your own thing and you've come a long way." I wanted them to feel happy for me. And then I realized, like, no, that's just never gonna happen, and that is okay. Like, I love these people in my life dearly. We have a really great relationship, and I can maintain that if I keep my journey in entrepreneurship to myself. But if I don't, and I have expectations for them that they didn't sign up for, and they're not ready to meet for me, then it's just not good for anybody. So I did have to learn that. And so now I have my husband, which is, I mean, working with your husband is exciting at times, but it can be stale. So, like
It can
it
be a
comes with
challenge for sure.
yes, but it is really nice to have somebody by you that has the same goals and dreams, that is rooting for you and you're rooting for him. That part I wouldn't change for a thing. Like
Right.
it is wonderful. And so because I have this, I feel like I guess I don't need it as much from the outside because I already have it
Yeah.
from the person I live with.
Right.
That it's certainly there. Yeah.
And that's great because that can be the biggest stumbling block for a lot of entrepreneurs. You know,
Mm.
we're wired different, right? Most of the
Yeah.
population is get that career, get that job, go do your 9 to 5, bring in that solid paycheck. And when an entrepreneur tries to share their dreams and visions, right? And that was the whole premise behind the title of this podcast is they're looking at you, they're kind of giving you that look and say, you know what, listen, Alyssa, stop wasting your time. Go get a real fucking job, go build somebody else's dreams and stop being a silly kid sort of thing, right? So
Yeah.
um, but it's key when you can recognize that, and which you did, right? You recognize, no, these aren't the kind of people who I can share that with, but it can sometimes be a lonely journey when you're an entrepreneur. And if it's Kevin, is it your husband?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If you didn't have Kevin, sometimes that self doubt can creep in, and it's like, yeah, I've got nobody to lean on, nobody to talk
Yeah.
to. So maybe it's just easier to go get that job.
I mean, I really am blessed to, have entered this journey with a partner. Like when we met, neither of us were entrepreneurs. He was kind of interested in the idea of starting a business, and he was kind of like that, but he had a 9 to 5, and I was in dental school, and we met like that. And I was like, yeah, I'll probably have my own office. Maybe I'll specialize, and maybe I'll even have two offices.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
this was the extent of my dream. And not that I was excited about it, but it was just, what seemed feasible for me. And then my husband he was like designing some websites and things like that on the side of his business. So he had some stuff going on, but not not with any like vengeance to try to make that a full-time thing or anything like that, right? Like some people have like web design agencies, for instance, but that
Right.
wasn't like he was more like yeah, I'll just like do like one website at a time on the side, this kind of thing, right? Yeah, but so then we entered this whole journey together, and so we've like leaned on each other the entire way in the beginning, and we still, I feel like very often we have no idea what we're doing, but at least we're
You're gonna
stumbling
figure it
together.
out together, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Do you have a bucket list?
Ooh. Before we had kids, my husband and I, and we've been married 5 years before having kids, we spent a lot of time abroad
Right.
or just moving every like 6 to 9 months, this kind of thing,
Oh, wow.
where we would spend, yeah, 6 months here and be like, okay, how about 6 months in Portugal? And then we come back and be like, oh, well, let's go over there. We really, really liked that. And then we had kids and we really settled. We have not been abroad since our kid was born. Our kids,
Right.
yeah, they have never been abroad yet. Bucket list would be just to start that process with the kids again. My younger one is going to turn 3 like this month.
Oh, wow.
So like a 3-year-old, so it's just still kind of young, but
Yeah.
like, but yeah, we're getting ready, and we have these kind of slightly, I guess, unconventional um dreams for our family, just like our my the whole thing that I did with my life and leaving my career back was unconventional, like for our life too. Um I really want our kids to have some experience with a broadened horizon. I'm not gonna be like, we don't have a home and we're like on the road all the time.
Right.
That's a lot. But just spending time, like a few months at a time in this country, coming back a couple months over there and coming back and then settling home again. But this kind of thing. So I have a bunch of countries on my
Right.
bucket list.
Yeah. No, hey, that's
That's
awesome.
it for me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay, last question I'm going to ask you, and this, this can be maybe it's a battle in your house or not. Toilet paper roll, over or under?
Over.
Over. There we go.
Oh, yeah, over.
Yeah, yeah. Now you ever get it under and you sit there and it bugs you so much you gotta flip it?
Yes, because my husband is under.
That's funny. You go out and you give him that eye, that look like, hey, what are you doing?
Yes. It's the
That's funny.
littlest thing, but yes, I change it.
Well, listen, you know what? The one thing I say to all my guests is I hate the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So let
Mm.
me ask you, just what does the future hold for Alyssa and Kevin and Owlish in general? Where do you see the future taking you guys?
I wish I said I knew, but if it's like future, God, that's far away. I don't know. In terms of business, I hope Owlish is more of like a 20-year at least venture for me. That's like, as I was starting it, like, because I've did a lot of business. I dabbled in a lot of things, right? But nothing filled my soul quite the way Owlish is filling. I really love it. And so I want this one to be like my 20-year or at least 10-year kind of project. Um, I'm not big into setting like big, hairy, audacious goals.
Right.
Let's say specific for the business. I'm more into like short term, like the next 90 day, like specific. It's just like so far I couldn't have never imagined that I would have started a SaaS 5 years ago. Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
Way too far. And so I'm more like follow the breadcrumbs. I like goals, but I like them to be like more immediate and tangible. So in terms of the business, I have no idea where we're gonna be, but hopefully it'll have grown. I'd be happy in it. And we have a lot of happy customers that we serve. That would make me very happy. And then for our family, yeah, hopefully I'll be maybe next time we talk, I'll be in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Okay, well,
Yeah.
listen, I know that there was something special you wanted to offer to the listeners. Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for your listeners of the show, I would love to offer you 2 months free for our platform, Owwlish. So, to get that offer, you can head on over to owwlish.com/job. So, that's OWWLISH.com. So, Owwlish, but with two W's, and then just /job. And I'll give you the link, Reggie, so you can link it all up.
Yeah, we'll
And
put that on the website for sure. Well, listen, Alicia, this has been a great conversation. Definitely learned a lot. I can tell that, you know what, the future is just going to be great for you. Even though you're not looking that far ahead, I'll look that far ahead for you.
thank you.
You know, and I look forward to, you know, when we chat again and finding out where you are since you're, you know, picking up every 6 to 9 months. I don't know how you do it. I hate moving. You must live, you know, without a lot of furniture and stuff, and you just pick it up and pack and go. But
I haven't done it in a while. I haven't done it with kids yet, so we'll have to
right.
see how this all goes.
That's great. Well, once again, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And listen, you know, before we wrap things up, I always end the show with a golden nugget. And today is going to be short and sweet because I am battling that cold, and you know, I'm going to get some medicine into me. But I just want to say, if you think the price of success is high, wait till you get the bill for regret. And I know that, you know, my listeners, my legends, they're not planning on paying that bill. So go out there and become that legend you know you're destined to be. That's it.
Amen.
That's it for today. We'll chat again soon.